brand new thing, making this transition. This was done by volunteers who were keeping an eye on how membership was going in the state of Michigan, and they were seeing a slow downward trend, and they were getting concerned about what was scouting going to look like in 50 years in the state of Michigan. And if something didn't happen, it was going to be a slow death march. And the volunteers had said, you know what, let's try to fix this. Before our national office came in and said, you're out, you're combining with them, and they were the ones dictating how all of this was going to happen. And so I really applaud the volunteers who took the initiative to stand up and say, we need to make some changes. And they took several years to look at those changes and get input and try to figure out the best way to make this happen. And we are now one state council, Michigan Crossroads Council. There is an administrative office in Flint, and they really are an administrative office. Scouting is not happening at that office in Flint. In other words, they're not planning campouts and all of that kind of stuff. They're just the administrative office. Scouting is happening in our 4 field service councils. And actually, if you want to look in your packet, you'll see near the back, you'll see what that looks like, those 4 field service councils. But Gerald R. Ford and Scenic Trails came together. Now, what the Michigan Crossroad Council looks like. And so we're working really hard. Nobody else in the scouting movement across the nation has done this. The national office is kind of looking to us to see how this works. And if it plays out, as we hope, that we're increasing membership and getting more kids and more units, then they'll probably be looking at adopting what we've done here to be able to use that throughout the rest of it. Well, the idea behind Friends of Scouting is that we hope that eventually everybody will be Cheryl. And Cheryl will go out and do her own unit's presentation. And that the guys here who are doing 2 or 3 presentations will be able to just sit back and just do their own particular unit if they'd like to. That's ideally what we would like to move towards. But right now, not every unit is in that spot to do their own presentation and wants to do their own presentation. So I thank you for stepping up and helping out with that. All right, the unit's role in Friends of Scouting. Now I realize that you've probably been involved in Friends of Scouting campaigns, and some of you may have been doing some of this and some of you may not have been doing this, but we're going to talk about kind of the ideal and how we would like to have this happen. So how does the United Way campaign work at work?
Well, we have our professional development day, and the guy gets up there and he talks about all the good things United Way does, and then there's a form right in our packet of if we want to help them out or not.
I am the campaign manager for the United Way campaign. So as an employee, I run the campaign for United Way. Very rarely do I have somebody from United Way come in and run the campaign within the office. In a sense, that's what we're doing here. Think of each Cub Scout troop and pack and crew as their own little work office, and they have somebody that comes in from them and does the presentation. And so if they were to do the presentation, what would they want to be doing to make sure that it was successful? They would want to communicate in advance, just like when I do a United Way campaign at my office, I let them know we're having a lunch, and this is the day when we're all going to turn in our pledge cards, and we're going to have some fun, and so on and so forth. Same exact concept. So with Friends of Scouting. And that's ideally, and again, that goes back to why we want to have each unit have their own person in place. But that's a baby step. We'll get there.
The dens that have the most pledge cards turned in or the most raised, we might do a pizza party for or something like that. So they were going to build this whole incentive program for their parents and their families to participate in this program. Similar to Susie down in the office, Susie will do a drawing for different random things. I mean, they're silly things.
Starbucks cards.
Right.
Popcorn, like we don't have enough popcorn right in our kitchen.
So for our United Way thing, if you turn in your pledge card early, you get entered into this drawing.
Into the raffle, yeah, into the drawing.
So thinking of outside of the box, different ways. It really just makes sense that we run the campaign similar to how we run our popcorn sales. You have somebody in the unit who's a colonel that runs that program. You have somebody, you get all the parents sold on the plan, and then we have this kickoff, and we get everybody excited about popcorn, and we send them out and make it happen. Well, it's the same thing with Friends of Scouting.
It's really no different. So this should not seem too foreign.
So are you advocating this is more of a campaign rather than a one-night?
Correct.
Here's the presentation. Let's
Correct.
give you a check.
So in scouting, we do, be prepared, do all your work up front. Instead of the presentation being the start of your campaign for your unit, it's the celebration, it's the wrap-up, it's the testimonials. This is why we give. This is why we support the Boy Scouts.
So could we give money as a crew just to support that?
Yes.
And if that's the case, it sounds like this is a year after year, you go back and give.
Yes.
So the following year, our crew might not have the same amount of money to donate, so how does that work?
You do the best you can.
Okay.
Yeah.
They don't set a goal and say, last year you give 12,000, this year you need to give 14.
You do the best you can with that. And yes, thank you for bringing that up. Friends of Scouting is an annual giving campaign. So it is done every year. So I give a gift every year to Friends of Scouting. The board gives a gift every year.
But it doesn't have to be the same amount every single year.
No,
Okay.
it doesn't. It helps if it is, but that's why we don't keep those one-time gifts in there. So that donor who gives us $10,000 once, we don't put that into Friends of Scouting because we know that next year we're going to have that $10,000 hole that we're going to have to make up somewhere. So that goes into a completely different part of the budget, the direct contributions. This is the prize that you will give. What you'll do is, as you do your presentation, before everybody turns their cards in, ask them to write on the top of their pledge card what they think the unit will pledge that night. All right, so you have your brochures, right? And then you also have pens. Here you have what's called an audit sheet. So when you have your cards turned in, you will be filling in an audit sheet. Okay, we'll talk about that in just a minute. There's a sample script for you, just in case you get nervous or.
Just thinking, Jerry.
And then there's a sample of what the patch will look like. I'll talk about that in a second.
Everybody find this letter for me. Okay. So what this is telling you to do is basically the cards that are behind there that are stapled to that, these are all your past donors. These are all the individuals in your unit, the rock stars that give in your unit and help make your campaign successful. Don't necessarily use these as a pledge card. Okay? I would use these as your way to track and get through to make sure that all of our past donors make their contribution again this year. Okay? So this is kind of your tracking tool to make sure that happens. Personally, what I would do first off tonight is
There's no rock stars in your church.
I would try to write some personal letters to these individuals saying thank you very much for your gift last year. We really appreciate it. We really want to start our campaign off fresh this year. Included is a pledge card. Do you think you could possibly fill it out and return it to me at one of the troop meetings before our presentation so that we can have a base before we do our presentation of gifts. And that way the presentation again, like I said earlier, becomes the celebration, the wrap up, the closing of your campaign. Okay? So that's why we say that to not give these cards out and give them a pledge card. Put the pledge card with this card so we know that it's done and complete. unit does not want to do the follow-up after the presentation, and you still have cards left over,
Still in the packet.
there's 3 boxes on here. What we suggest is the unit tries to make at least 3 attempts to make contact with that individual to fulfill that pledge. If they get through 3 attempts and they still haven't made contact, return the card to Mike, put it in the packet or whatever, or your unit campaign manager, whoever that might be. And so that way we have a tracking process of getting all of our past donors to renew their gifts this year.
So the bottom line is that, first of all, this is very confidential information, all right? So I need you to make sure that you respect the confidentiality of the person who's given and how much they've given. So, these slips are very multi-purpose. Either you can talk with them ahead of time and say, hey, I'm coming to your meeting on January 25th. I know you've given a gift before to Scouts. I hope we can count on you again. You can fill in a pledge card at that evening, but we're looking forward to seeing you. Or if you want to go ahead and you can make that pledge with me over the phone right now if you want. And we'll just send, in the office will send you a bill. So you can either do some stuff ahead of time with these donors, or you can wait until the PAC meeting or the troop meeting, and you just know who's given in the past. And when all the pledge cards come back in, and you're filling in your audit sheet, you can say Joe Smith gave $20, Bob Jones gave $50. You can then kind of look at those slips and go, oh, there's Bob Jones's pledge. He's given again, and you can draw an X through that card, and you know, oh, we've gotten his gift. He's as a past donor. Does that make sense? And then, hopefully, at the end of the evening, you will know who's still out there that gave a gift in the past that wasn't at the meeting, right? Because you may have 1 or 2 slips still left in your stack that they weren't there that night to give a gift. So then you can have a conversation with the unit to say, hey, we noticed that Bill Watson didn't make it tonight, and he gave a gift last year, and we'd love to have you give him a call and encourage him to send a gift in, or to send a pledge card. Here's a pledge card. Have him send the pledge card in, and we can all go ahead and bill him. Okay?
So would it make sense for us to collect the credit card number at the time that we're making the call? I mean,
No.
If they're comfortable giving it to you, you can. Or you can just write them down and say that they're going to be sending in, that if they want, we will do it. They've made a pledge and they want to be invoiced.
okay.
Yeah.
Or what you can do is just take the pledge, and then at the presentation, they can make their payment then.
Or, they can go online and make their gift online.
Okay.
All right? How many of you have gone to the MichiganScouting.org website? Okay. If you haven't, go to the MichiganScouting.org website. Set yourself up for an account. All right? You will see that there is on the side is President for Council. Click on that, or no, click on Donate on the top. Then you'll see the council strips come up. They click on the President for Council strip. Little box pops up. They type in their information. They say, it's just for Friends of Scouting. They say that it's for the Northern Trails District, and it's for Troop 1. And here's the dollar amount.